DEI, leveling the field for historically underrepresented groups or reverse discrimination. Let's discuss. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Today is the first episode of Speak Freely, a show dedicated to giving a voice to us all. And today we're going to tackle diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI. Now, DEI is one of the most divisive topics in an already divided political landscape, which is honestly why we chose it. And there's a lot of debate around what it is, who it helps, who it hurts, and if it's even necessary. So let's take a look and see if we can't bridge that gap. Now, before we get into the arguments around DEI, let's talk about what it is and where it came from. The United States has a complicated history when it comes to civil rights, right? The 13th Amendment was passed after the Civil War in 1864 and abolishing slavery. And the 14th Amendment was passed 4 years later, addressing citizenship and equal protection under the law. This was then followed by the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the Enforcement Act of 1871, and the Civil Rights Acts of 1875, 1957, 1960, 1964, and 1968. We have tried a number of times to get this right and just never seem to get it. Now, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 seems to be one of the more successful attempts and is widely considered the framework for modern civil rights. And what this did was prohibit discrimination on the basis of race, color, religion, national origin, and sex. And other protected classes were added later, such as pregnancy, age, disability, familial status, and others. But simply put, whether you're a man or a woman, black or white, Christian or Buddhist, you can't be discriminated against based on being a member of any one of these groups. So why are there disagreements? Well, at the core of DEI is the belief that diversity is a strength, right? And even 61 years after the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was signed, we still don't have enough of it today. So the goal is awareness, education, and action aimed at correcting historical injustices, but also combating current systemic issues for groups that have been typically underrepresented, primarily in employment and education. And the thought is, if you could provide more opportunities to these groups, you help level the playing field and give everyone an equal shot. Now, on the other hand, opponents of DEI see it as, artificially lifting up those in minority groups at the expense of others, right? Which ultimately causes the talent level of skilled jobs and college acceptances to be diminished. The argument there is simple. DEI is sacrificing quality for diversity. Instead, those opposed to DEI advocate for a system of merit-based hiring and acceptance, which aims to select the best candidates possible, regardless of who they are, where they come from, or what they believe. So is there any common ground here? Can we find a starting point that can address the concerns of both sides while still staying true to the core beliefs that each one holds? Yes, we can. And that starting point is actually merit-based hiring and acceptance. How? Well, the biggest misconception of DEI is that its goal is not merit-based. It is, right? DEI isn't meant to force jobs or admissions for unqualified people over qualified people. It's trying to open doors for qualified people who just haven't had the same opportunities as others. Additionally, who it helps has been a topic of discussion, right? We're all aware of certain groups being affected, like race and sex and LGBTQ. But veterans also face discrimination, as do mothers and the disabled and people who face issues like poverty or illness. DEI is simply identifying people often left behind and trying to give them opportunities. Now, I'm not saying that the implementation and history of DEI in some of its forms, like affirmative action, are perfect. They are not. But the primary goal of DEI is to ensure that we're selecting the best possible candidates, which is merit-based hiring and acceptance. Honestly, the only real difference between these two philosophies is their approach, right? Proponents of DEI look at the demographics and see inequities due to bias, whether intentional or more often just unconscious bias. The belief is that if you educate those doing the hiring and accepting and you provide more opportunities for everyone, you're likely to end up with a more balanced and equal system that looks for the best of the best. Now, if you're opposed to DEI, you probably believe that requiring or even incentivizing these based simply off checking certain boxes, it's actually creating bias. So, how do we balance this? Well, studies have pretty conclusively shown that people in these minority groups are interviewed less, hired less, and even paid less than their counterparts, even when they have the same or even sometimes better qualifications. So, there is inequity. But if the solution is to create more or a different type of inequity, is that really a solution? Right? Now, there's no quick fix, but I do think a good starting point is to focus less on the D in DEI and more on the I, right? Diversity and equity should be the outcome. That's what we're striving for, right? A system that looks like we do and represents who we are. The way to achieve that is through inclusion. If we create a more inclusive atmosphere that gives more opportunities to everyone, we might be getting somewhere. Inclusion should be the action plan. Diversity should be the measuring stick. You don't start with a desired outcome and work your way backwards. You start with a plan and then measure your progress as you work towards your goal. So, we've talked a lot about what DEI is, who it helps and hurts, and now we're left with the question, should we do away with it? Absolutely not. DEI is a powerful tool that can be used to solve a fundamental problem that we have in this country. But in order to do that, we have to do certain things. First, we need to recognize that there is inequity, right? We can't deny the overwhelming evidence that inequities exist. We just can't. Second, we don't remove people from the table in order to seat others. We build a bigger table so that we all have a seat, right? I mean, that just seems logical. And third, we have to de-weaponize the term DEI. It can't be used to question whether someone is unqualified based off what you think you see when you look at them. And it can't be used as a slur, DEI hire. It has to represent a common goal that while we can debate the best way to get there, we're all in agreement that we have to get there. What do you think? Hit us up in the comments and let us know. Thank you for joining us, everyone. If you made it this far, like, comment, subscribe to help get this party started. And remember, be good, stay humble, speak freely.